Bam.
This is Kyle Mills, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Every time you come on the show, we just have the best chats. We're about the same age. We've done a lot of similar things in our lives, and I feel like I get you pretty well, and I dig chatting. So when I go back and listen to our old chats to kind of prep for the episode, I'm like, God dang, why don't I talk to Kyle more often?
Why don't we?
I don't know. We're going to fix that. We're going to fix that right now. So you're here obviously to promote a new book. I'm going to put the link up for everybody here in a second. But the main thing I guess to say here is this is your own book this time. You're not ghosting for somebody else. Or not, you don't mean ghost, but you're not writing under someone else's banner.
Correct. Yeah, okay. I've written 9 of the Mitch Rapp books for Vince Flynn. I actually wrote 3 for Ludlum. And now I'm kind of back on my own path.
So no more writing for Ludlum and the Mitch Rapp stuff now for a while?
No, nothing anticipated.
Okay. Funny, I'm reading a Ludlum Born, I forget what the name is, the Born Wedding or whatever it's going to be right now. And it's such an amazing time that you can make a viable living doing that. And I guess, are you of two minds? Like, is it great to have the steady, high-paced work? Or do you like, hey, it's time for me to write my own stuff for a while? What do you think? And can you even say, you don't have to say if it's bad for you business-wise?
No, I'm one of those people, I really liked doing that kind of work. I really like writing books. I like the challenge of writing books. I was a huge fan of both Ludlum, growing up. He was one of my heroes, and then later Vince. So it was a real honor to be able to do that. I learned a lot. And I'll be honest with you, it's pretty easy if you like that kind of work and you're willing to put that kind of effort into somebody else's, franchise, because, the amount of, like promotion, the amount of digging in with the publisher on how everything's going to happen and all the details aren't really that important to you. They're really not your business. So it's really about focusing on writing the best book you can, and then you hand it off. Go skiing. Right. So I thought it was pretty fun, but after 9 Mitch Rapp books, it was, I think it was because I was kind of creeping up on having written more Mitch Rapp books than Vince. Yeah. And I don't know why that seemed like a hard stop to me. And I just thought, I feel like I've left it in a good place and maybe now it's time to go.
We discussed this. I asked you last time, like, hey, pretty quick here, and you had the same response. This is a couple of years back now, but you're like, I'm not sure I want to go past that point. I don't want to be the guy who writes more books, and that's, it's cool. One that you're you, right? Like that's a great note to your integrity, but also there is something to your artistic integrity where like this doesn't really belong to me, and really, if I can try to think like you want to write your own stuff more than you want to write somebody else's stuff, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's really fun to write the Mitch Rapp stuff because it's a great character and it's a great universe that Vince created. But, it was I had written a lot about Islamic terrorism because that's very much the series is kind of built around. And it was the era that, Vince started it, obviously. But now there's so much going on in the world that doesn't really have much to do with Islamic terrorism. It was starting to feel, I don't know, I was starting to feel like I'd done a lot of that and that it wasn't probably the primary threat to the United States. So it was really a question of, did I really want to start fundamentally changing that series? And I really didn't because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of idea. But there were a lot of things, there's so many things going on in the United, not in the United States, but also in the world with runaway technology and, Russia attacking and Hamas and China, eyeing up Taiwan and AI and my God, global warming. So it's coming at us from every direction now. And those are the kind of types of things that I really wanted to explore. I didn't think Mitch was necessarily the right guy to, he's not mine, right? So it wasn't really the right guy to do that with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You use a SEAL for your protagonist. What made you make that decision? Like, well, how come you went that? I mean, look, SEALs get a lot of attention, right? And so it's a good moneymaker. But why did you pick the SEALs in particular?
They get a lot of attention now, but so I first introduced this character 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't, I wouldn't say the idea that there were a lot of former SEAL heroes back then. I'm struggling to think of one. So I wanted a
But I
guy.
didn't realize this is an existing character. I thought this was a premiere. So
Yeah, well,
this
I
is
mean, in many ways, this is the premiere to a new series. But this is a
gotcha.
character I wrote about 20 years ago. At the end of the book, he basically died, which is what he wanted. And I just left him there. I really didn't see ever bringing him back. But he was a really popular character with my fans. I really loved writing him. He was such an interesting like character with a lot of depth. And so I don't know. I started thinking, well, I kind of came up with a way he could have survived, but I needed a story for him, and he's kind of the perfect guy to tell the story of the world today. He's kind of got this dark sense of humor. He's a little philosophical. He has a way of feeling overwhelmed by
Yeah.
everything going on, kind of like everybody else. Whereas Mitch Rapp's very much the master of his universe all the time. And so that's kind of was the thinking of bringing him back. And the fact that he was a SEAL was really very much because, and a former CIA operative, was kind of the skill set he needed when I
Yeah.
first created him. And also really the story of the first one, was because he had been injured and had kind of been screwed over by the United States. So again, I got a little bit of a different background than a lot of my
Yeah.
contemporaries, right? Where they write people who are very, very gung ho and have had these great careers that are kind of golden boys. I would say that is not his background.
I,
He's also Arab American. His real name is
yeah.
Salam al-Fayed.
Yeah. Does he speak Arabic?
Oh yeah, he comes. So his family was first generation Syrian, moved to New
Mm,
York. So he grew up in a Muslim in an Arabic speaking family and all that. So another interesting perspective,
yeah.
to write from.
Yeah. There's a guy named Adam Gamal, not his real name, but he was Egyptian, came here as a young kid. Standard immigrant story. I had $5 in my pocket. You know,
Yeah,
and he showed up and he fell in love with America and joined the army and then worked at one of the highest level intel support teams, that basically like supporting Delta Force, right? And did exactly that. Like he is the guy that you just described, and it's
yeah.
incredible that you're not far from the truth.
No, never. You never want to stray too far from the truth. And honestly, it's hard for me to remember why I did that. I think one, I thought it would be an interesting perspective to write from because a, an Arab from an immigrant family has a really
Mm-hmm.
different view of the world and of America than a white guy like myself. And I love writing
Yeah,
women. I love writing, other, I suppose it's kind of gone out of vogue a little bit to write other ethnic groups, but I still like doing it. Nobody's beat me up about it too much, but I honestly, I do think that part of it was the fact that I needed him to, that I, that I needed him to speak fluent Arabic. And having worked for many years to learn Spanish, I know how hard that is, and it's a bit of a, I don't know, like a little bit of a meme, and or maybe a trope would be a better thing, that all these people, all these operatives, all speak these languages to the level that they can pass as native, which is, I can tell you, because I live in Spain, is
yeah.
virtually impossible.
Oh yeah, yes,
I mean, you can
yeah,
speak well, but pass as a native. Meh.
yeah. When I worked in Germany, we would do these exercises in town, and you'd walk around, and as long as I kept my mouth shut, I would get spoken to in German all the time. You know, but the second I was trying to respond, and like, I'm sorry, I'm an American. They're like, yeah, we know.
Yeah.
Like, even though you're just trying to do your best, and it's simple, like hello, good day kind of conversation, and they're like, oh, you're American. You're like, oh, yeah, yeah,
Well, people
yeah,
can even tell with me. I mean, my Spanish is good enough that a lot of my friends in Spain are Spanish, and have dinner parties and all that. But I have an accent, and I make obvious mistakes. So I mean,
Yeah.
you're never gonna get there.
Right. They can totally understand you, but yeah, yeah. And you're right. Like this is a real thing. I have capacity in a lot of languages. I'm conversant in none of them, unless you pick the right conversation stream. And
Right.
usually it's farming stuff. So I've talked to a lot of farmers in combat zones. But you learn all these things, and you realize that there are cultural and just specific names for specific things. Like tools are impossible to master. If you ever wanted to trick somebody, it's a good advice for any author listening. If you ever want to trick somebody, show them this thing, the scraper thing, right, for the garden, and ask them what that's called, and you're not going to know in that foreign language. You're just not going to know it. It's just
No.
there's too many, they're too specific. And we would have fun all the time talking about, what do you call this shovel, or oh, what tools do you use? And they would have these names where a native speaker of Pashto or whatever it is would be like, I've never heard of this before. And then they would have to have a conversation, which, and I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna shut up, which seems like bad work on my part, but it's invaluable when you get that person talking to my interpreter and they're talking about, what do you call a spud shovel, or a, whatever it's going to be, and it removes all barriers instantly. And that's why I use that technique. So it's an interesting thing to look for, and for sure impossible to hide if you don't know these things.
Yeah. And Spanish is even worse in that you'll say stuff in Spain, but you're using the Latin American word because you learned it
Yeah,
in the United States. And
yeah.
they're like, oh, wait, you're not from here.
One of my favorite Spanish words to say, and it's a Spanish word, it's transbordadores. And I'm not saying it very well, but that just means space shuttle. But nobody ever says transbordadores. They know what it means, but they're like, no, we just say space shuttle. I'm like, I know. That's
Yeah,
what I live for. It's
I would
fun.
have said Lancerera, but maybe that
Yeah.
was something like that. But I didn't know the space shuttle. But there are no more space shuttles, so probably not a very
Well,
common word.
yeah, yeah. It's an obsolete word now. You you were talking about the technology thing, and we talked about this the last time, and it's just gotten more insane. Where at least at first glance, you can see a lot of videos on the internet and believe that they're real. Like that's where we are right now. Maybe you watch it and you're like, oh, hang on a second, but you really have to want to not be fooled.
You do, and it's like everything I do because I do a ton of research. It's getting harder and harder. And it's sometimes it's trivial things. In fact, I was just telling somebody I get a lot of because I live in Granada, Spain. I get a lot of stuff in my newsfeed about Granada, and they'll always have a picture. It's a very pretty city, a picture of Granada at the beginning of like a travel article. And lately, I've noticed that you look at it and you're like, well, that looks like Granada, but then where was that picture taken? And you realize that isn't Granada. Somebody just said, told AI, do a picture of Granada so they can put it on their article and not pay royalties on it. But
Right.
it's a pretty church in a white village and it's on a hill, but not Granada. And so now everything I do, I think, is this really, and I want to describe whatever Belarus is it,
Yeah.
and Minsk or something. And you're like, is this really a picture of Minsk? Or is
Yeah.
this AI's version of what that is? And
Yeah.
so it's crazy. And because I think people want to be fooled to some extent, it's really easy to fool somebody who wants to be fooled, particularly have really good
Yeah.
tools to do it. So
Yeah.
people really have a much stronger, I don't know, like sense of what they believe and what they don't believe than when I started out 30 years ago. I think it's very hard. People really jump on you if they think, you're saying something in your book that's against, their belief system. And which didn't really happen 30 years ago, because keeping in mind that 30 years ago, there also was no internet. So maybe they would have.
Sure. Right.
But but yeah, it's interesting because I think what makes a book interesting, maybe more so than a movie, is you really can explore in a kind of a deep way different issues, different people, different perspectives, and yeah, sometimes you can get in a little bit of trouble with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's neat to think about what you can do with information operations, obviously, but also on the this is an information operation of a kind, but it's going to be a little bit different. If I wanted to develop a character who was going to go after Fade, your character, I could program sock puppets to populate X and Facebook and Reddit and TikTok with information that's just not true, but will become true because AI works on a preponderance of information. It's taking, for anybody watching, what a generative algorithm is going to do is going to take a word and then what's the next most likely word, like thank you, right? That's going to be a very common. It's going to do, and it's pretty good at that and mimicking what we do, but it's mimicking. It's not really actually writing something. And so, if I was going to run an influence operation to go after your main character, if I have 250 robot accounts across 5 platforms all saying the same thing about, all of a sudden that becomes reality.
Yeah. And it's getting more and more powerful because of AI. Now they've done studies where, AI can look at you. And this is another amazing thing is that, I know people think, Microsoft put chips in COVID vaccines and all this to track you, but
Yeah,
they don't have to.
they don't have
Your
to.
phone knows everything you think, everywhere you go, everything you ever bought, who all your friends are. And AI can now use that information to specifically target you. Used to be
Yeah.
you would need a psychologist to go through all your posts. It would take months and then design some sort of, I'm going to influence Bob over there to do whatever, right? To buy a car. And now it's instantaneous. And so everything you've ever posted, everywhere you've ever been, all that stuff, they can take that into account. And then those bots that you're talking about don't even have to do one thing. They don't have to say, oh, well, they're going to say, well, Sarah over there likes her stuff to have a picture of a puppy on it. So everything's going to have a puppy on it for her. This guy likes guns. This guy's influenced by this kind of language. So if they want to influence 1 million people, it'll be 1 million different
Mhm.
attacks on you. Did with,
Yeah.
oh, this person likes video, so we'll create video. This person likes to read. So the power of it is incredible, and that's very much what this series is about. The tyranny is coming, and and the tools for the people who want to take over are so powerful now, so much
Yeah.
more powerful than they've ever been in history. Even if you think of the Stasi and the Soviets and China now, um, that it'll be hard to resist, and people will have to want to resist it. Whether they do or not, I'm honestly not sure.
In CIA, Stasi, KGB, whoever it's going to be, if it's human capacity versus that computer capacity, I can't iterate fast enough. I can't remember enough. I can't stay awake enough to do all of that. And so it's even more insidious. I mean, look, if you wanted to ask me how to step by step build a network to infiltrate DC as an adversarial country, I can do that. And I can spend my entire career building this powerful network. Or I can get a bunch of agent robots. In theory, if we get there, you can write a story like this, where Pete and his agent robots go out and they start infiltrating DC for a fraction of the cost and a fraction of the time. Like, that's a real scenario that I can imagine right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think it's happening. So it's really, it's a really fascinating thing to explore in a book, and it's something
Yeah.
I think because it's complicated, and it can be people can take it in a very partisan way. Because I think
Mm.
there are a lot of people out there who don't mind this level of power as long as it's being wielded by their guy, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
if you're a Biden person and you're happy that they have the power, if you're a Trump person, you're happy that they have the power.
Mm.
Nobody should have this power, A. And B, don't you should never think about presidents. You should think about the White House, because the president is going to die or leave office, and you don't know
Yeah.
who the next person's going to be.
Right.
So,
Right.
you think about now, I think the executive branch is becoming more and more powerful. Trump
Right.
has been very good at creating, building the power of the White House. But and everybody, maybe if you're really into Trump, maybe you think that's great.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be so funny when AOC becomes the next president, right? So it's something to ponder, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I've not heard of a president in my lifetime that has shrunk the power of the presidency either. So even if
No,
it's
no,
not
no.
Donald Trump, it'll be someone at some point, and it'll, And the other thing, and you made a smart point here, the White House, the power is also the building, the people that work in there who spend careers in there, the folks who work on the Hill, and they slowly graduate up and they amass power and influence. By the way, on the spy side, I love those people because they're desperate to rise and they'll do a lot of things to keep that power. And so for guys like you and maybe someday me, I'll get a book done. But man, what I would do and what I could write about are different things. And the things I could write about are amazing because I've worked in that world and it's limitless. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
technology changes, but people don't.
No, no. I've always thought, if Caesar got in a time machine and, came to America, it'd be about what, a
Yeah.
year before he was running for president. You
Yep.
know, he'd say,
Yep.
"Oh, I understand all this."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We were talking in the last episode. We were talking about like some people thinks that violence is never the answer, and both of us were like, well, until it is,
Yeah,
until
it
all your
can be.
adversaries lay at your feet, right? And boy, the audacity of audacity is shocking to people, and we're lucky that we're also gracious towards one another. Otherwise, there might be a lot less get along than we have. Even though it seems like we fight a lot, I would say ultimately, and look, there's always trying times. But if you and I have this conversation in 10 years, we're gonna be like, "Whoa, it's a crazy time right now," you
Yeah.
know. And as a sort of how we roll is just have this. Not quite a rolling gunfight, but we make it hard on ourselves. And thankfully, the founders built it that way. Like it's hard. The majority rules most of the time, but not always. And sometimes there's something else there to check it up. It's an interesting. Well, I don't want to get too far into the political science of how we work and everything, but it's an interesting device, I suppose, to use in a book where by being a compelling figure, by being the force majeure, you can actually make the change you want by just simply being audacious.
Yeah, it's really is surprising. You push until somebody pushes back,
Yeah.
and what you find out is people aren't that inclined to push back.
Mm.
So it's a I don't know, how far can you take that? That's one of the things that thrillers always explore. Like, take what's happening and then just shoot a little steroid into it, and
Hmm.
that's a thriller novel. Because you don't want to be too outrageous. Then you get into sci-fi and stuff. It has to be a threat that is right around the
Okay.
corner, or that's you think might be happening at that moment behind closed doors. That's to me what makes a really fun thriller.
Yeah, and what the character doesn't know, versus what the audience knows. Boy, there's some great tension in there as well because you're desperate for the hero to go out and do the heroic thing, but they don't know that the guy's empty. And so he's like, "We've been in a gunfight. I actually lost count because it's hard as hell to count bullets when they're flying. What am I going to do?" And everybody's like, "Go, go!" But he doesn't know, and it's a great device.
And now, because it's less, everything's less black and white, it's much more gray.
Yeah.
Sometimes now with a character like mine, the question is, what is the right thing to do?
Mm.
It's sometimes it's not super clear cut.
Yeah, well, this I don't know if you saw the most recent Mission Impossible movies, but there's a lot of that in there, and the Tom Cruise character Ethan Hunt, he's trying to battle something that knows what his next move is going to be, and so it's it's like inconceivable. He's like they're trying to outthink this robot that is all powerful and all knowing, and does he have enough agency, or is the agency figured into the algorithm?
Yeah,
And
and I mean the AI thing. I mean that came on so hard and so fast.
yeah.
Like, I think about, I mean, I've not been away from the Mitch Rapp stuff very long, but I remember writing the last one, Code Red,
Hmm.
when published in 2024 or something. I wasn't even thinking about AI. Like, it wasn't a component in the book, like nothing. And then all of a sudden it just absolutely blew up. And I think it has really far reaching, I mean, really, it's hard to know where that's going to go and how society is going to deal with it. Certainly, it has amazing applications. I think medicine, right?
Oh boy.
Should be
Yeah.
told humans are not good at medicine. mean, you'd have to be able to keep like 20,000 studies in your head and
Hmm.
how all your drugs are interacting and all that. It's just not something we're set up for. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But but then the intelligence side and the control side, I mean, it's Big Brother writ large. I mean, if you read 1984, Orwell talks about rudimentary stuff like, the TV that you see, but also it can see you and things like this,
Hmm.
but it's nothing like we have now. And then there's the really, in my mind, that I find is really interesting and to write
Hmm.
about is where does this leave us? I mean, I just watched a show. This guy, Rick Beato, has a terrific
Sure.
YouTube channel about music. And he just created a whole band and wrote songs just using prompts.
Yeah.
And they were pretty good. Like, I,
Yeah.
like that you'd listen to them and never know.
Yeah.
And so if AI is better than us at everything, this is what made us special, right? This is what made us feel
Right.
like,
Yeah.
we're the smart, we can do something nothing else can.
Yeah.
What's our purpose now? Just, I don't know, eating and wandering around and dying?
No, the positive side of me says, Kyle's going to sit down and say, all right, I can write this book in 2 hours, but I can make it better by spending another 40 hours on it and really take it at a higher level and take some of that, I'm going to say boilerplate. Take some of that boilerplate off of your back. And I know books aren't boilerplate, but you get what I'm saying. There's just certain stuff that has to happen. And so if a lot of that groundwork is done, maybe then you can find new ways to augment the book and make stories that defy the formula because you have the time to really get outside of that box. And I'm just trying to make something up here. Look, we used to
I
think
hope
in
I hope
computers.
you're right.
Well, you're
I
not
feel like
limiting your
there's a day
creativity.
that coming that AI is just, I read an AI book and think, that thing's better than me.
Yeah.
Oh,
But can't
so
Rick Beato make better music than someone who doesn't have the theory background? And can't he, if they have the same AI tool, isn't Rick Beato going to reliably beat the other person?
well, I mean, if that's what his goal was, he probably could. He could say, "Oh, well, don't go to the minor here, and let's up tempo it there, and add some distortion here." But that's not what he did in this video. It was very much like create an AI indie
Yeah,
band, make it kind of acoustic, and have the lyrics be about,
that's
I don't
so
know,
good.
Texas, and that's all. That was it. Like he
Yeah,
couldn't do it any better than I could. So I mean, and you can do the same thing, I'm sure, with AI with a novel. You could, I
yeah,
assume, just say it seems like it wouldn't be able to do a whole novel, but you could say, well, this is my idea for a chapter. I
sure,
haven't really
sure.
experimented with it that much, and see what it does. I'm very
I
particular about my books. Plus,
sure, sure.
I do it because I love doing it. So, like
Mhm.
the idea of, I guess I could do it faster. I like, okay, but it's what I like to do. So why
Yeah,
would I want to do it faster? Now, if I
yeah,
needed to do 3 books a year, well,
yeah, yeah. It'd be like a card trick. Which one's the AI one?
yeah,
Two are real. One is AI.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I still think that we'll have the ability, at least for the foreseeable future, to outmaster that because, again, for large language model predictive algorithms, it is looking for the next most likely word. So it's going to write in a certain style. Now, you might even say, in the style of Kyle Mills, write me a thriller, right? And so I've actually done a little bit of this work. I was trying to, and I failed at completing the project because I like to write, but I don't like to finish things. Um, Write me an outline for a book in the style of Stephen J. Cannell, and I want to have these elements in it. And it did a fantastic job. It got rid
mhm,
of the blank page problem. And then
mhm.
I immediately started deconstructing the story and doing what I wanted. But instead of looking and waiting and typing 200 words and getting sick of it and walking, or even 2,000 words, I was able to stay on task and I did the bulk of the work. I just didn't come back to it. Now, that part I'm not very good at. But again, I'm not a writer like you. I'm not trying to act like I am. But I think that there's something to the AI part of it where you can take the best of what Stephen J. Cannell did and make something else cool. There's still work to do in that kind of universe.
Yeah, and it does some things really well. In fact, just today I was like, somebody had asked me, "Oh, can you just get a working title?" for the book because this isn't the Fade In, but it's the book I'm working on now.
Right.
And just so the publisher has something to call it, right? Because I call it like FMD4, D6 or something. And so I was like, oh, AI. Like, this is what the book's about. Give me a
Yeah.
working title for it. And it came up with something that was, I mean, it's probably something we'd use, but for a working title, it was fine. Like
It's fine. Yeah.
yeah, it's great. We can send it around now to people and it has a name. So
Yeah.
for things like that, you know, quick hits like that, I think it's probably not a bad thing, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
This.
It's going to be interesting because I think
Yeah.
it's going to take over a lot of tasks and it's going to change the workforce. And I
Yeah.
think if we've learned anything with humans, it's the idle hands or the devil's work. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
sometimes you start to think, I wonder if we'd all be better being subsistence farmers with no vehicles or anything. And then there's only so much trouble you can get in, right? The only guy you can kill is really your next door neighbor because everybody else would be too long a walk. And
Right.
your only
Right.
weapon is a hoe.
Yeah.
So, you know, but
Yeah.
you start giving people, you know, fighter jets and nukes and
Right.
things start doing
Yeah.
some damage.
Oh man. Yeah. You don't want to kill that guy though, because he's got delicious plums, and he'll trade
Yeah.
them for your carrots.
Yeah.
It's like you
His
need each
cow
other.
trampled your raspberries.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something to be said for idle hands, and we definitely get precious about things that barely matter, if they matter at all. We get really, really precious about that. It's funny the kind of things you see people openly admit to, and just like, wow, why would you write that publicly? Like, why would you be such an asshole? You know, just calm down, slow down. You know, we want like the answer right away. You know, like we use President Trump. He's moving fast. You can't solve some of these problems in one day. It's just going to take months. There's no way around it, you know, because these are big, complicated things. You may not
His
like what he
problem though is he
does.
always says, I'm going to do it on the first day.
I know he does. He says the
He
most
just
ridiculous
didn't
things.
say that. Like people would be like, oh, he's killing it.
Yeah. But it still wouldn't be fast enough, you know. Anyhow, I don't want to get too much into the political thing because it's exasperating. But and I do want to see this, everybody. Hey, trust me on this. I've not read the book yet. Kyle Mills, his latest book is called Fade In. It's a thriller, and so you can get that book. I'm going to put the link up right here on the page so you guys can get it. And you guys know what I always say, buddy, read. Get two of them. That's the best way to read or start a book club, that kind of thing. And this is how we help authors do what they love to do, which is write books. He doesn't want to have him write his book. He wants to do it himself. And so definitely get Fade In. I'll be getting it, I don't know, I guess in a couple of days when it comes out. It debuts on the 29th. Is that right?
It does indeed.
Yes, I got it right. Yeah. Yeah. So I mess around with writing a couple different novels, and you know, I kind of peck my way through, and I'll get pretty far. This will sound ridiculous to you. I'll get pretty far into it, like 40,000 words, but I just don't have a sense of where things belong. When you know, like, I'm going to make this one a little sexier. Then I'm like, now I'm writing a porn book, you know, and so I'm always trying to find. I'm using that as an example because it's pretty extreme, right? But in all of these things, I'm like, do I just need any relationships in this thing at all? And then I'm stark, and then there's no love, and I'm like, well, that's not it either. And so I struggle with how do I meter what's interesting in the book and still keep it on a straight line to get me from A to B, and I don't have to write a 300,000 word spy novel.
Well, I mean, you just have to decide on what's your style, though, right? I mean, like for instance, my books don't have sex in them; they never have. So it's not
Right.
something I've ever. I literally, when I started out, I thought, "Oh, my mom's going to read these," so I didn't put it in there, and then that just became my writing style. You know,
Right. Yeah.
so I guess those decisions you have to sort of decide on what kind of writer, what your voice is going to be, and what kind of writer you are, and then
Yeah.
those decisions
Yeah.
are sort of made for you to some extent.
When I write about spy things, because of the kind of spy and the way I approached it, I'm more of a negotiator of more than anything else, and so I kind of take that approach with my characters, where they don't have to kill every damn buddy. Because in my world, in the real spy world, if you go around killing people and blowing up entire city blocks as you try to get away from somebody, you have to leave. Job
Oh,
done.
yeah.
You know, like they don't want you around anymore.
Now, It would. You wouldn't want the Mission Impossible people around too much. You wouldn't have very many cities left.
No, no, they really are the anti-hero. You're like, hey, thanks for helping. But you destroyed these ancient temples, and thanks.
Yeah, it's
Over
got that
what?
Monty Python feel. What was the Holy Grail? He killed
Yeah,
the bridesmaid.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that's pretty funny. Yeah. So anyhow, when you get into the spy world, I love to read good spies. I'm not interested, and this is just me in the style I like to read. I don't want if I'm reading like an action book, and the person who does the intel stuff is too bookish, and they're incompetent physically. I just lose interest because that doesn't represent who I am in there. Now, look, I'm being completely unfair because a lot of people are going to do things their own way, but it's too tropey for me to get over it. When you mentioned tropes earlier, I guess if you nail a trope on purpose, you're being campy, but when you
Yeah,
don't, it doesn't work. And so I'm always fascinated about where the trope is and how to nail it, so you don't make someone like me go, done, close the book. Because I'm a guy who finishes books, but if I'm done with the book, I am finished with that book. If that makes sense.
right. Yeah. It's an interesting thing because I think what you're talking about, the where trope meets genre is a little gray.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick up a Mitch Rapp book, for instance, I you want to read a Mitch Rapp book, right? So if I had gone in there and tried to said, oh well, this he's done a lot of books that have these themes, so I'm going to
Right.
completely change it. That's not a Mitch Rapp book anymore. So I think there are expectations that readers have of, this is what I'm picking up. I was in the mood for this. If I wanted to read Jane Austen, I would. So I think that is, so when you say trope, when I use that word, I like, it sounds insulting, but I don't necessarily mean it that way.
Right.
So with my books, though, that's a little different. I've been really lucky in my career to be able to write a lot of different books.
Mm.
I've written on all kinds of different subjects. I've written in first person. I've written in third person. Now, was that necessarily great for my career? Maybe you'd argue no, but um, the if you really are in a specific genre that you want, or even a subgenre, I consider Mitch Rapp books kind of a subgenre of sort of the lone gunman, right?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of a modern Western, then you know you're going to have to hit those notes for sure, and that's
Right.
that's not a bad thing. It's like going to McDonald's. You know, you went there because you wanted the kind of crappy burger. You were in
Yeah.
the mood for it.
Yeah.
Or you go to a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Well, you were ready for the tweezer food and the weird stuff. So, but sometimes you want one, sometimes you want the other, and so
Yeah.
that's what I do. If I want to read, sometimes I'm just dead in the mood to read a Mitch Rapp book. Like some guns
Yeah.
blazing, and other times, maybe I read a classic or something more literary.
The trope thing conversation is always interesting. Can trope be like how pride can be at least two different meanings? Like yeah, you're prideful. Oh, is that an insult or is that a compliment? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
Can trope work both ways, or maybe even more than two ways?
I think it absolutely can. I think about westerns, which
Yeah,
I love.
they're tropey
Oh my
and they're
god.
great.
Yeah, you know what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Hmm.
From the starting credits, you could probably be like, I can do this John Wayne movie. I can do the whole. I know exactly what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and it's great.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
doesn't reduce your enjoyment of it at all. Because that's what you wanted to watch. So, and then maybe you can do something really original or really different than something else. So, um, I I I I really just think, can you do it in an interesting way? Can you
Yeah.
twist it? Can you create a character that's a little unusual, that's got a lot of depth? Um, and that's kind of what I wanted, is to create a character that was really interesting, that was a little different than what you normally see, who has interesting points of view that maybe ways of thinking that most people wouldn't maybe. And
Yeah.
how is he going to deal with the same things that we deal with every day? Because, with AI or whatever, tyranny or the
Yeah.
visions in the United States, um, as opposed to, not necessarily a Islamic terrorist trying to get across the border with a bomb kind of thing.
Yeah. 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 It's like, I don't know. Have you seen the new F1 movie? Are you into F1? Would you watch that movie at all?
Is it? I don't even know what it is. It's a movie about
F1,
F1
the
cars.
racing league. Yeah. Brad Pitt made a
Hmm.
movie, and Formula One like basically commissions this thing. So they're all over it. It's their branding and everything. And when you watch it, it's this is going to shock you. It only takes one American who wants it the most to win.
Is there
Trophy as
even a
hell.
single? Is there even a single American F1 driver? I don't think
He
there is.
tried last year. He tried. I think
Uh,
it was last year. And he didn't. He didn't. He's young kids don't make it much anyhow. But no, 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 there is not, right.
yeah.
And so this guy walks in off the street. He is absolutely a Western character. And actually he walks off like Shane at one point. I'm like, oh my god, am I watching Shane?
It's a great formula, though. I mean, there are only so many stories to tell about the human
Yeah,
condition, right?
yeah, yeah,
So now you got the underdog, the scrappy underdog, right? It's
yeah,
Rocky, and do you think about Rocky and then GI Jane, which is a movie that I don't know, I've got a soft spot in my heart for, but if you watch it, it's really just Rocky. So,
yeah, yeah,
those
yeah.
things work, and there's something about they became tropes
Right.
because there's something built into humans that evolved into us that love that story. And probably 10,000 years ago, people were telling those same kinds of stories, around the campfire.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know how hip you are to Menander, but anybody watching, there was this Greek guy named Menander, and he wrote all of the sitcom, you know, premises. But he was a Greek from thousands of years ago, and we lost most of it. But yeah, I mean, these things are ancient, right? The oh, that's a big misunderstanding. I mean, there's so many. There's operas based on that, and
Shakespeare,
Three's
too,
Company.
you
Oh
know,
yeah, for sure.
like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
classic, like tug you at the heart kind of
yeah,
scenarios, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't think it's anything to shy away from.
Right, right. The I wanted to ask a little bit more about using the SEALs as a thing here. My experience with SEALs, and I love those guys. They're awesome. I know a bunch of them, but I would say if I was going to paint with the big broad brush, their default is let's just go kill that guy. And I'm like, hey, that guy's the mayor. He can just kill everybody, And so they tend to when they're being their best Cro-Magnon selves. That's what their answer is. Like, let's just go kill that guy, or let's
Yeah,
go beat him up if they're being nice, right? um, how do you deal with that?
it
How
is.
do you deal with the fact that these guys are action guys who their first, second, third response is often going to be, let's go kill that guy?
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the interesting things about Fade is he had really started. He was in Afghanistan, obviously, and he'd really started to question it because I mean he's much more in tune with the locals being from an Arab family,
Right.
and he started like he'll say he's like, oh, what am I here to do again? Oh yeah, kill some guys for some douchebag in Washington who doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he became really disillusioned with it. He's like, we're going to lose here, and what are we doing now? Like
Yeah.
we're just here because it's politically convenient. And so he became a little disillusioned. He then was injured. The government kind of abandoned him, didn't give him the medical help he needed. So he became a little dark.
Mm.
And his views on what he had done for all those years, there's a lot of introspection about it. But I do agree with you. It's funny because that is like I know a lot of these spec ops guys, and it's very much like, oh, we can take care of that problem by just killing all those
Yeah.
people. But
Yeah.
and
And
sometimes
then,
you can.
and this is like, at least never makes it in the books. And someone like me is had to go, hey, Jeff, we're trying to build up the government here.
Yeah.
you can't, you can't just go kill the next governor just because you don't like him. You can't.
The hearts and minds are not going with you on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's always been a little unfair, though.
Yeah.
I've always thought with the military, particularly the last couple of missions, that's two different divisions. I mean, they need to have a
Sure.
hearts and minds mission, you know, that's full of geeks like me, like who's interested in the culture and the language and all this stuff. But, that's not really what the military is built around doing.
Yeah.
Very good at kill those people and take that territory. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you
Yeah.
got a bunch of 18-year-olds from Nebraska and they're like, go into this 2,000-year-old culture, tell them they're wrong and how they should do it. And
Yeah.
that's a big ask.
It's a big ask. It is. Actually, I just had Stanley McChrystal on the show, and we were talking about character. And I'm pretty hard on generals because they did a lot of ill-principled things. State Department, congressional people, all of those guys, they lacked the principle, and so they put us in environments where you say, these things always brief well. Like, what about the boys being raped by men? Like, hey, we got to go walk 45 minutes that way, and there's nobody coming to help us. On our list of things to do is to not piss off the guys who are trying to kill us 45 minutes that way. Yes, we'll go fight them, but we don't want to get ambushed because we're messing with their culture too much. And I'm using the worst heinous example, but
Right.
we
Sure.
don't know enough to know enough. And Stan was great. He's like, yeah, we killed this farmer at 2 a.m. in the morning because he was digging down by his irrigation area. And I said it was a good shoot because that's his job. That's what he decides, right? And if it gets to him, nobody knows. Then he's got to make the hard decision. So he goes to Karzai, and Karzai is like, yeah, you killed the wrong guy. That's a farmer. It was his time, his turn in that community. You take turns, and you guys don't know enough about us to not kill innocent people.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
you know?
it's much easier in war, like to go back a few thousand years and be like, okay, your job is to take that territory, and anybody who doesn't like it, put them underground. And then
Yeah.
we're gonna rape, and then we're gonna steal all their resources and whatever. That's a nice simple mission. But I mean, I think every country probably, but America in particular, because we've been so successful, has the feeling that all other countries are kind of failed efforts to be like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having lived all over the world, I can tell you that is not the case.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to go in and say, but look, we've got it so much better. Well, like everything's better in the United States, and we can teach you our formula. And yeah, from their perspective, they don't have any interest in that formula. So it's you're selling a product that you think is awesome,
Yeah.
and maybe not as good as you think. I mean, even living in Spain, I can tell you the
Yeah.
Spanish do not want to be Americans.
No.
So,
No. Right.
um,
Nor should they.
no, and their country is lovely. It's very different. Their culture is different. They have a lot of problems, but they're different problems.
Yeah.
So, trying to apply our solutions to them, to a
Yeah.
Spanish problem, even though Spaniards are much more similar to us than an Afghan and that
Sure.
culture, it's just not
Yeah.
going to work, and it's not going to be appealing to them at all. So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's going to always be true. And they have different neighbors. One of the smartest things I ever heard an officer say to me was, these are European guys, like, Pete, there are many Europes, and you're like, fuck, I didn't think about that. Like, we just kind of think about the Midwest, whatever that is, the South, and the damn blue bloods up in the Northeast, like, and then
yeah,
we're done. Like, we don't ever think about the Mountain West or anything else. Yeah, Europe doesn't abide that. There's
no.
enclaves and there's micro states, like Andorra is one of your neighbors.
Yeah. I
And
mean, even inside Spain, you have the
yeah,
Catalan who don't speak
sure,
Spanish, the Basque who were terrorists for many
yes,
years, separatist terrorists who speak a whole other language. And so it's actually amazing they've held together. But again, the problems are really very, very different for them than the problems we face in the United States, and they have to have their own solutions for it. So um, I think mistakes were made with what could be accomplished or what can be accomplished with military force,
yeah.
and the application. You need the application of time. That's the other thing is Americans think in very short time frames.
Oh boy,
Yeah,
yeah,
we're like, oh, 5 years, we'll have this fixed, and
yeah,
mostly we do. I mean, we're
yeah,
pretty good at that. But other cultures think in, centuries, millennia. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a funny story I was going to tell you about special forces and mixing with folks that are trying to work on the social problems because that's a space that I filled quite often. And so we we find this chief of police. He's a young kid, right? So he's like a precinct chief. He's super young. And I'm talking to him, and I just want to hear what he has to say. I don't want to tell him what he has to do. I just want to understand. And he's like, well, one of my problems is you guys, because I'm an American, so all of us are you guys. You guys keep coming across the river, which is across a county, a province boundary, and snatching up the men in my neighborhood. And then I have to stop everything I'm doing and go take care of this family because they don't know where their husband or their son is. And it takes all of my time. So I can't actually be a police officer because I'm across the river. I'm talking to Americans all damn day. And if you guys would knock that off, that would help me. And by the way, we have laws here like you guys do. And so if you arrest somebody and you have a warrant, you have to leave a copy of the warrant. And so we write this in an intel report. Hey, if you come across the border and you snatch a guy up, that's fine, but you have to give the family the warrant like you're supposed to. I swear to God, the next night they snatched the dude up because I want to see what happens. And I go back to that lieutenant. He's like, yeah, here's what those guys did. They snatched the dude up. They took a knife, kabonk, and stamped it into the kitchen table. And in between the kitchen table and the knife was the warrant. And I'm like, no, that's the wrong answer. That's the wrong answer.
yeah,
Like so we talk about how hard this stuff is. That's how hard it is. Like you're trying to like, and then what am I going to say back? Hey, not like that. Like there's only so much communication that can happen, and so it's sometimes it's preposterous. When you hear that, and that's 100% true. Like that really happened. How do you fix that? And I'm like, you know what? I just don't fuck with it because I'm only making it worse. I have to get away from it, And I told that lieutenant that, like, I'm always glad to talk to you, but I can't help you with this. It's dumb. It's crazy.
yeah. I mean, it's a constant struggle. I mean, living in Spain is very much that way. Where I think I understand what I'm doing. Yeah, I
Yeah.
speak the language, so I'm like, I know I said the right thing, and I understood your response, but I think I'm losing some. There's something being lost in translation here,
Right.
and so it's a constant battle to learn what's rude, what's not, how you get things done, and all these things. And I can't imagine Afghanistan because you're talking about like just polar opposite. At least, we are kind of Europeans. We were a couple hundred
Right.
years ago, we came from the
Yeah.
same place. It was like visiting China. Where you're like, oh
Yeah.
my God, everything is that their hand gestures are different. You can't even use like body language. You're just done. You cannot
Yeah.
communicate at all. And
Even the way
so
they walk, their gait is different than ours.
it's like I remember a guy kept going like this to me, like I was trying to give him money.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, he doesn't want my money. I started walking away. I realized that's 10. They don't do that. They do 10. And so he wanted 10. And
Yeah.
so I was
Yeah.
like, well, that was lost, man.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And it's, from Fade's perspective, it's interesting because, he's Arab. And so
Yeah.
not Afghan, obviously, but
Right.
much closer to that culture than the average, you know, American guy who wanders into Afghanistan. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, it really is a fun thing to play with the cultures and the international locations and all the exotic, the food and the smells and all that.
Sure.
I love like I love walking around the souks in Morocco because it's so exotic. The
Yes.
language is really exotic, and the
Yes.
food cooking smells different. The clothes are all different. It's just really, I think, if you can capture a little of that, and people
Yeah.
can read that, just makes the world a little bigger.
It is. I love to write about. Again, I'm not the writer. Okay, everybody, Kyle's the writer. But when I write, I love to put people in an environment that I'm familiar with, even if I've never been there. I know like how to write about Rabat because I've been in other places like that, and those smells that you don't smell anywhere else, the spices, all of those things. It is fascinating, and with modern technology, you really can create a realistic like walkthrough of the city or whatever restaurant you're in because there's footage and pictures of all of it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. Google
Yeah.
Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you this before we run out of time. The religion thing. I was watching a and I was reading a thing about the State Department and all the things they do, and one of the areas where they suck is we have this thing, separation of church and state. So we just blanket assume that for everybody else. That is not how most of the world operates. Even if they're not secular per se, they it's in them. It's just like you can't stop being a Catholic, you can't stop being a Mormon. You might be a bad Catholic, you might be a bad Mormon, but there's some baseline wiring in you. And so when you deal with the fact that someone from Syria has an Islamic background, they understand Islam in a way that is native to them, and they also understand the beefs and everything else. Like when I was in Iraq, I'd sit there with my guy, and he'd be like, "Okay, the Sunnis just got here," and I'm like, "The Sunnis? How did you even know?" He's like, "Do you see those guys over there? Obviously, they're Sunnis." And I'm looking at them.
Just
What
look
are you
like
talking
guys,
about?
right?
Yeah, and they're like, "See his collar?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You see how it's tighter?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "That guy's not." And so now we're pointing at people, and I'm like, "I still don't see it." It's like in French when you're like, "Not le mieux," and you're like, "It's
Yeah,
the same fucking word."
that's so
And so
true.
the
And
religion thing matters. Go ahead.
well, yeah, I was going to say that people don't understand that. I've always said, that most of the Islamic world, they see everything in their lives through the lens of religion. Like, I
Yes.
mean, you can be religious in the United States, but you don't. The Americans see everything, in my mind, through the lens of time and money.
Mm,
But that is not the case there. Everything is wrapped up in this religion. And it makes it it's really difficult to predict how people are going to feel about certain things, what they're going to do. Because, I
yeah.
mean, their entire society, if you look at their economy, their banking rules, even the way they fight and stuff. There's so many little nuances about, like with companies in the Arab world, how they can't really be passed down the same way ours are. The legal system works really differently. And all those things combine to create, I mean, basically a lot of problems for them for moving into the kind of what we would consider the modern world. But
Yeah.
they're all based in that. You can't lend money for interest. I mean, that's in the Bible too, but we kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
So, these are all things that, it used to be back in the day, and I mean back in the day, hundreds of years ago. One of the reasons a lot of Jewish people were in Europe is because to lend money, because they could lend money to non-Jews and not, be in violation of their beliefs and stuff. So, it's you wouldn't really think about that, how that could stifle the banking industry or whatever. So it's all part of that, that religion, and it permeates everything. Whereas in the United States, yeah, it's really no longer the case. It hasn't been for a long time.
Yeah, yeah, and this is when we get the culture the most wrong, is when we lose that religious element and understand. Yeah, and this is not just old ladies and Catholics, who are they're desperate to save souls and everything like that. This is a different approach altogether, and it's less heaven and hell and demons are everywhere out to get us, and it's just a different approach. And it takes a long time to see it, and I only kind of can see it, and I'll never see it like someone who's native at Islam. I mean, it's just there's just no way.
No.
One of the smartest people I ever met in terms of ethnography and working in Afghanistan. She embedded to do it real ethnography. A female, speaks French, speaks English, so she's sort of a quasi American. And she slowly inculcated and became more and more hindered in terms of freedom as she gained more and more access within the world of the Afghan women and the men too. And it's really interesting for her to talk about that. And so going back to our conversation about what we have a license to do in combat and versus what we actually do, I was asking her, how long does it take to build that capacity where you can inculcate in and safely, without causing a bunch of harm and chaos, start to engage with women? This lady's a PhD level, so she knows how to teach people this. And she's like, "You don't. You never do it." And I'm like, "No, we can build something." And she's like, "Listen, I'm saying you cannot do it. It will not happen. You will not build capacity to be able to do that." And we hate that. We hate that.
Yeah. I mean, you're born to certain things, and I think about it all the time now, living in Spain, that this is a culture, the American culture I was born with, and I'm just not sure how far I can shed it to see through their eyes and to interact with them. Fortunately, they think I'm funny, but like
There you go.
all the Americans are kind of funny and obnoxious, and so they
Yeah,
like us. But and we're big tippers. But
yeah,
generally speaking, it's really is. It'd be interesting to be married to a foreign. I have a number of friends who are married to foreigners, and
yeah.
it'd be interesting to know exactly how that sort of meshes. I couldn't eat
Yeah.
Spanish food all the time. I could
Uh,
now. I don't think I could have a Spanish wife. I'm just so
yeah.
tired of Spanish food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's like my brother who's passed away, but his wife is from Mexico, and so you eat real Mexican food
Oh,
there.
then you get good food. I could definitely marry a Mexican.
Yeah, yeah, and it's wonderful, but it is different, because it's from their part of Mexico. Do you have time for one more real quick topic?
Sure, sure.
Okay, writing bad guys. So you got Fade, obviously an impressive good guy. You have to find someone that's going to push him back. Do you like writing the good guys better than the bad guys, or just talk about writing bad guys?
Yeah, writing bad guys is fun. I think I'm a criminal at heart, so
Good.
I like to I like these bad guys that have these really grand plots to, rule the world. Not really, but big
Yeah,
plots, but that they're really justified.
yeah,
They feel very justified in doing it. And in this book, you have this Asian biochemist who really wants to wipe out a lot of people, but he has a very good reason for it. And I always want readers to read the bad guy and think, for a moment, think, well, he's kind of got a little bit of a point there. So that is to me really fun to get people to see through that villain's eyes and be like, well, I know they're wrong, but I see where they came to where they are. Yeah, you never want to write a villain that's just like, oh, he was born evil, right? And then there's Fade, is kind of an anti-hero. Like like you were saying, the guys who kill, they kill a lot of people. And at one point, somebody described him as an unrepentant mass murderer, and I was
yeah.
like, well, yeah, I mean, but he's fun.
He's fun. The Spanish
He's
love
deep.
him.
Yeah, he's deep down. He's a cool guy. He's a really nice moral guy, but he does have that killing people thing,
Yeah,
there too. So he's a little bit of an anti-hero, not your perfect shining, mid
yeah.
Midwest Christian kid who goes over and it really always has a perfect moral compass and all that stuff. That would not describe him in any way.
I love it. Well, listen, let me describe the book. It's called Fade In. It's a thriller, and it's out. It's the debut for this character, although he died a couple 20 years ago. But it's the newest book in Kyle's world. You guys should definitely go get it. You know what I always say, buy two, get this thing. It comes out on the 29th of July in 2025, if you're watching this later. So definitely get that. You guys know I love to bring great authors on here so you guys can enjoy these things. And I get a lot of feedback that you love that. So let's just keep going. Support Kyle with his book. Anything you want to say in closing, Kyle, before we wrap this up?
No, just I really appreciate all the enthusiasm particularly from the Mitch Rapp world, that people
Yeah.
are willing to follow me over and on my new adventure. So it's been really gratifying because I didn't know if when I left that people would just say, "Oh well, not writing the Mitch Rapp stuff anymore." But there's been a lot of interest in this next project. So thanks.
Fantastic. Books make great gifts for everybody. Hang in there, Kyle. Say goodbye to you a second. The rest of you, I'll see y'all tomorrow.